This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV. It's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
You're listening to the Animation Addicts Podcast, episode 331. Hello, Nintendogs meets Myst.
Welcome to the Animation Addicts Podcast with the Rotoscopers, the #1 place to get your animation fix with animation addicts just like you. Each episode, we dive into the wonderful world of animation featuring Disney, DreamWorks, Pixar, and everything in between. From hilarious discussions and movie reviews to interviews with industry insiders, this show's mission is to brighten your day through our love of animation. So hop on your nerdy couch, grab some snacks, and get ready to hang out with your animation besties because it's time to dive into today's episode.
Hey there, animation addicts. I'm Morgan Stradling.
And I'm Chelsea Robson.
We are back again, and we are not doing animated lairs, villains lairs, which we said we might. We always keep you on your toes. Whatever we say, expect something different. And today we are reviewing the Golden Globe winner, and it's nominated for this year's Academy Awards, Flow.
It's the classic trope. I just made a new group of friends.
Add this to the list. Chelsea and I are going to be talking a little bit about some things after this episode, so be sure to stick around for the bloopers for those. But in the meantime, let's get into Flow.
Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does without me lifting a finger, so I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
Uh-oh. The last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
All right, before we get started, here's some basic information about this movie. Comes from all of our favorite places: Box Office Mojo, IMDb, Wikipedia, bonus materials, which obviously were not available for this, but all over the interwebs. So, the production studios. Dreamwell Studio, Sacre Bleu Productions. I'm like, wow, could there be a more French name for a studio? And Take 5. Distributor, there were so many, but I just included the US distributor as Janus Films. And the director is a Latvian director. His name is Gints Zilbalodis. I totally butchered that. I did try to listen to it multiple times beforehand, and yes, Gints Zilbalodis. But in the US, this was released November 22nd, 2024. It was limited to just LA and New York. And then on December 6th, it opened to 200 theaters. Yes. And then the budget, 3.5 million euros. And this was stupid. Then they gave us the box office in US dollars. Said, now we're comparing apples to oranges. I can't do this. And so the budget converted to US dollars, 3.677 million. And the box office, $12.5 million, which this is very much a small production. This guy who, Gints, I was looking up, he went to an art high school in Latvia and then started making animated shorts. So he's had a few over the years. One's called Rush, Aqua, Prioritates, Followers, Inaudible, Oasis. And then in 2019, his first feature film was called Away. And this one came out 2024, is called Flow. He very much has these one-word titles, which, hey, I'm a fan of. And it went to, this one was nominated for Best Feature in 2024. He won in 2019 for Away. So he came out of high school, didn't go to university, just started making animated shorts, and has made quite a name for himself over the past few years, which is really impressive. So I'm very impressed by entrepreneurs or people who just, go the non-traditional route, and they're able to see a lot of success as a result of their perseverance. So this is a very interesting film. I remember talking with Rachel Wagner, our friend, and she was mentioning, well, you got to see this one. And I really wanted to see it when it came out, the limited release in December. And my local theater did have it, and I was excited to see it. But December was a rough time to, slip away and see a movie. But man, this was really enjoyable.
It was very different from what we have been expecting, not necessarily expecting, but what we have been used to over the last little bit. And to have would you call this a foreign language film?
It's a foreign film. It's not quite a silent film, but it's definitely a foreign, no dialogue film.
It's a no dialogue film, but it is, all the animals have their own little way of communicating with each other, which is interesting because you're able to really engross yourself into the moment, and you just really start asking more questions than getting actual answers. Mm-hmm. But it is engrossing.
Yeah. It's funny because you're saying, this is definitely a bit different compared to the films we've been watching. I just saw Dogman this weekend, and I'm still under embargo even by the time this podcast comes out. But Dogman is what you would expect. It's very much a kid's film. It's silly. It's not deep at all. And so going from Dogman to watching this, I was, wow, the range that animation has. This is definitely a more mature, serious film. What I loved about this film is that it throws you in and you're trying to figure out what's happening. And there's lots of mysteries and clues and artifacts. And because it is a slow-paced film, for the most part, there are some quick moments where, like a tsunami comes or something crazy happens, right? But for the most part, if you sit back and you look at this film and you're to explain it, it's a slow-paced film. And that's what I really liked, because I felt like we, like the cat, were just walking around and we're able to take in our surroundings and try to put the pieces together to figure out what happened here. What era is this? What happened to this civilization? We have all those wooden cat statues everywhere. There's the wooden cabin that the cat lives in. And was this his owner's at one point in time? He used to live here? And even once we get to I got my new gang of friends, they're all from different parts of the world. We have the capybara, which is from South America, the lemur from Madagascar, the secretary bird from Africa, the Labrador retriever, which I associate being very much a United States dog.
Yeah.
We have the gray cat, which could really be from anywhere. And then we have this very European, Italian architecture. And we have Asian architecture. So everything about this is very mysterious. And I thought that was really...
Epcot.
Yes. I thought it was very interesting because it left you asking questions and trying to figure out as we go what happened.
Yeah, you jump in, and first off, you have this cat who obviously has 9 lives because he or she has outlived everything. And it's an empty bed. He has it all to himself. I'm just going to go with a he because I had a male cat most recently, I guess, and so that's in my head. So we'll go with that. And he was very much the star of the show, I guess, because it starts with him and it kind of ends with the new group of friends, but it's with him joining in the gang, and all the action follows him.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was just from the moment of just trying to be a cat, just trying to outlive the dogs and chase after, get your own food, all the way to just trying to survive this massive flood that just happened. And now having to learn to trust others and having to learn to kind of build relationships with the unlikely pairings. It was interesting. I liked it.
So the animation, I went into this really, really raw and blind as far as who had done it, what was their budget, any of that. And initially, the animation, for the most part, looks really nice. And I think if you took any frame of this film and took it as a still, it would be very impressive and good looking. However, there are certain scenes where it comes off looking cheaper and a bit choppy. I think the part where I noticed it the most were the dogs themselves. It seemed like certain dogs, when they were barking or making movements, it seemed like there was a few frames missing. Like it was unrendered or unfinished. And I mean, that's kind of a very minimal critique, because then you find out that they had created this entirely in open source software called Blender. And Blender is, like open source. Anyone can use it. I think I watched some of these like Zelda just videos on YouTube where people have basically recreated Zelda using Blender. And it kind of had that feel to me, like this little video game engine feel of like, it's a fan video at parts. There were certain parts where it felt like that and other parts where it didn't. It very much, also talking about video games, it reminded me of Wind Waker, which is cell shaded, and it's a 3D game, but they cell shade it so it kind of looks flatter and there's different dimension to it. And this definitely had that feeling. Like the coloring it almost was like it was on different planes, as far as like the highlights was on this plane, and then as you curve around, it wasn't totally seamless or and that's not a critique. It was just kind of, that was the art style that they went through. Although the backgrounds are very not near photorealistic, but with an artistic flair to it.
Yeah.
I felt very immersed in this world. I felt like I could feel the grass as we were walking around and the trees and the flowers. And it felt very real to me. And it reminds me of the original Toy Story. If you go back and you watch Toy Story, you're like, wow, this doesn't look good at all. But it's the story that sells you on it and gets you engrossed in it. And very quickly, you ignore the animation. Now, I know this sounds like I'm making the animation seem like it's crappy. It's not. It's really pretty. There's just certain moments where it stood out to me as being a little different.
The dogs.
Yeah, mostly the dogs.
Every time the dogs bark, I felt like you're just yapping over there. Like it looked very shell-like.
It reminded me of Nintendogs. It was this 3DS game for the Nintendo DS. And you had, I never played it, but I believe you had a dog. It was kind of like a Gigapet sort of thing, but with a dog. And you had to raise it and do these different things and train it and whatnot. So like, yeah, it reminded me of Nintendogs. And then also just this being thrown in this world with no map, no guide, no context, reminded me of this other video game that I used to play called Myst. Did you ever play Myst?
No.
Okay, Myst was a computer game that there was no dialogue, there's no people. You're thrown onto this island and you have to walk around. And here, I'm sharing my screen. Am I sharing? Yeah, let me share my screen with Chelsea so she can kind of get a feel. And you're thrown onto this island, and there's like a observatory, and there's a library, and there's this mountain.
Okay.
And so you're walking around and trying to put the clues together, try to figure out what happened here. And it came out, I believe, in 1993. I mean, you're looking at some of these images. It's very, early.
Yeah.
But for the time, it was like, wow, this is super cool for what it was able to accomplish. But it definitely got Myst vibes. It might just be like the not the low res, but just kind of the unique video game style, but just being thrown in, trying to figure this out. I will say, we had the guidebook to Myst, And I still could not figure out that darn game. I swear my copy was broken because when I went to the library to do the thing that they told me to, nothing happened. And it frustrated me so much. And I would try to go back to this game and like, okay, I'm going to follow it word by word. I don't know if I was just too little at that point. I was probably 7.
Oh, wow.
Or I don't know when we ended up having it. Probably not until much later when I was maybe 10. But it was, I don't know why my mom decided to buy this random game, but yeah, you should watch some videos on YouTube. The music is very ominous. And this likewise had really great music to just kind of had little beats to it. And some of it wasn't there. It was more ethereal versus like an actual orchestra or, it was just kind of a ambiance to go along with the journey.
Yeah. I felt like they did a good job of creating, adding into the tension and really helping the feelings and the motifs flow through.
Yeah, so let's talk about flow. Because I was primed with the idea of flow being all I really knew about this flow, and then the image of a cat. Sometimes you see the cat in water. You get, okay, there's going to be, I'm assuming, some water happening. And so as the flow came, I said, here comes the flow. And it quite the flow that it was. But then I was also paying attention to other elements of flow that we see in the movie. And I was just hyper aware of those things as they came. But I noticed the flow of movements of animals like the deer as the migration was happening. They follow a certain flow. There was the lemur's tail was going back and forth, and that had a flow to it. Obviously, the flow of water is the biggest aspect, and we see that many times. But also the animals, they are going with the flow where the river takes them. They find this dilapidated boat and hop on for survival, and then have to go where the wind, or in this case, the water takes them.
They really wanted to make the water itself its own character because it appears suddenly and it causes all of the problems, and then it disappears suddenly, but it also guides the movie along the way. So if you're looking at characters, I would say that was probably something they were trying to do. So you had the lemur, the golden Labrador, the bird, the capybara, and the river. I thought about adding the boat in there as like a character, but the boat, sure. I guess you could, because it added, and it was there sometimes, it wasn't there. So, but as far as like the things that were making choices or adding emphasis to the story, I would say that those were the main elements.
Yeah, and with those different creatures being from different parts of the world, it adds another layer of mystery and intrigue. How did all these animals come here? Was there a zoo that got destroyed and now they're all living in the wild? Is this some weird world that's just has an amalgam of so many creatures that are all living in one place? Was there some sort of big catastrophic disaster that changed it? Oh gosh, what am I, my 3-year-old?
I think this was like pre the flood and Noah. And so it's like, yeah, Noah probably had his 2 of 2, but I have a hard time believing all of them. Maybe there was a random boat here and there.
There was the architecture, which I thought was very beautiful. We're going through, and it's just all these arches and these tall buildings, and the world is flooded. Yeah, and so we're not able to see the bottom of that. So it's like these buildings basically are coming out of the water, and I thought it was so beautiful. I just wanted to sit and stare and look around, and luckily because of the slow pace of this movie, the cat was doing so, and so we were able to really take in our surroundings. And just the whole time watching this movie, I'm like, this is such a different experience from what I'm so used to, especially comparing it to Dogman, which was just like action, 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 loud noise, lots of talking. And there was no talking. Very much, Ghibli in that way, where you're able to go and just experience the atmosphere and the environment and the sounds and the different senses before, and this isn't even just for exposition. This was throughout the whole thing. And it allowed me to think during the movie, and instead of just being a consumer of the movie, I was more of a participant in the movie. And I don't think this is a movie that you could watch while on your phone.
No, because
you would miss so much, and you'd be like, well, that was a crappy movie. It's so interesting because apparently Netflix is now trying to cater their movies and their scripts for the scroller. meaning they want a lot of their dialogue. I've heard this, that a lot of the dialogue to be called out, so that way people who are on their phone still will be able to enjoy the movie. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Netflix, what
have we done to art?
Yet again, you know how much I love Netflix. And like, if this is what you're trying to cater to, because you know that's how your audience is, you're just going to dumb down your movies even more. This would not do well on that platform because you had to be very much an engaged participant during. And then I felt afterwards, you know, that's one of the hallmarks of a great movie is that afterwards, are you left wanting more, asking questions, thinking about the film? What were the themes? What happened there? I mean, there were a lot of unanswered questions at the end that made you wonder what happened to them, what's going on here, you know? So, yeah.
As they just sat and waited for the legend beast to die.
Well, did you watch the end? So the very end, there's a scene and this water beast whale, we see it swimming off.
Oh, okay. So
it came back alive.
Somehow it walked away. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. So again, like, did another deluge tsunami come and carry it back up? Because initially, at the very end, we think we're done with the water, but because the water hits a fault line in the forest. And so it immediately begins draining into this fault line. And then our adventure is basically done. And then we're taken back almost to the very beginning of where we started. We're back in the quiet forest. We're looking around. There's trees. There's grass.
They're in the Great Valley, Morgan. Like, no, that's exactly what happened. The cat comes out of the little hole and like sees this giant bowl, and now he has to go down into it with all the extra lemurs and everything. So it was like, Nice. And once again, it's the the Land Before Time. For me, this was like Land Before Time with cats. Like it's the I found a new group of friends with the cat and these other animals, and they're all looking for this, the Great Valley before everything goes away. So I was like, okay, I get it now.
Well, yeah, and also that with these animals, they have to learn to overcome their, prejudice for each other, because they are completely different animals, and they have, the Labrador is kind of dumb. The cat's very inquisitive. The lemur is kind of like the cat in that he has these little trinkets and things that he likes to collect. The secretary bird is aloof but really mean,
but also is what saves the cat, and then somehow gets twinkled and somehow just then disappears. And I'm just like, okay, I guess we're not going to be hearing from him in a while.
Well, he has an interesting arc because he comes along because he's injured. And so the last thing you would think on a journey like this is a bird, because birds can fly. So they have a natural advantage, wing up, if you will. But he's injured. And so he ends up, hanging out with them, but he's difficult to work and live with for a bit. And then we see that he's kind of dominated by the other birds when they finally meet back up with them. Kind of that fight that happens, which I thought was very interesting.
And then they're so mean. They just like break his wing. That's harsh.
Yeah. 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 So let's talk about that part where the cat is very much drawn to these pillars, these long islands, if you will. I don't quite sure what they are, but the cat climbs all the way up to the top and then sees the bird there. And like you said, there's this nirvana, this spiraling where we're in this other not another dimension, but like gravity has shifted. There's some sort of magical element here that's allowing you to float up. Again, more flow happening. And the bird gets taken away. I have been chosen. Goodbye, my friends.
Exactly.
Going back to Toy Story.
I was like, this is okay. They go into like a magical place where everything flies upward, and then I was just like, well, okay, or maybe it's just some fever dream because they haven't eaten for the past couple of days, or I don't know. But yeah, no, he definitely gets twinkled and is gone.
I don't have answers to what happened there. And I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Unless there's something that I completely missed. But I was expecting more answers. I was expecting maybe some resolution at the end. But he's gone. He doesn't return with the pack. He floats away. Poof, you're gone. And then I'm still sitting here after the fact, and I think that's part of the intrigue of this movie is that it leaves you thinking, it leaves you questioning what happened to the bird. What was that up at the top? Is that a one-time event, or because it disappears, it goes away, and then normality resumes.
Well, and he was also the one that was basically saying, no, we don't want to bring in these other dogs. And all of the other animals were like, I guess, can't we save them? And he's like, fine, whatever. And then it come to find out, the other dogs were, completely useless and basically being jerks to everybody in the boat, trying to get all their stuff. And then also at the end where they just like, oh, there's a bunny. Bye. Like, we're not going to save you guys.
Yes.
But then like the core four were like, no, we're sticking together.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting. I liked it's so funny how you were able to extract this personality from the bird. Whatever. Bye. Just from this, non-dialogue. Way to go, Chelsea. Wow,
Thank you very much.
It's a Valley girl, boy.
Well, and then the Labrador's like trying to be besties with the cat, and the cat's like, nah, like I don't want to deal with you. But then later on, and then there's a point in time where they like all start to annoy each other, except for the dog, because the dog's just happy to be there. But the cat is annoyed by the dog, and then starts to annoy the lemur, and then the capybara is just like, I'm just chill, can we get along? And then, everybody's just kind of doing their thing. But I felt like they definitely did have like personalities.
Yeah.
I
think that's going back with Wallace and Gromit when we were able to talk about that. Sometimes less is more. And we see with Feathers McGraw and Gromit, those characters don't talk. And so you have to showcase so much more by expressions or poses. And I think they really did a great job conveying that. I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. Their actions and their intentions were clearly passed on to me. I knew exactly how they felt. Oh, and that was another thing that I really loved, is that the animals in this weren't over the top. They weren't, they didn't have a superpower. They are just real animals. They don't talk. There wasn't a certain point where the cat, was like the superhuman cat that could do all these things. The animals acted like real life animals, and the objective is to survive. There are fantastical, mysterious circumstances surrounding this. That's outside of the animals' control. They realize, okay, things are off from the norm here, but the animals act as animals would. So it's raw. And it's interesting because we get to see we already kind of know the limits of how animals would behave and what would go on here.
Yeah.
And they have to work within that. So obviously there's tension between different species of animals. And we don't really see like a power dynamic as far as predators or having to fear for your life.
Yeah.
There's not like a rabbit in there that's going to be eaten by the cat, or, and the bird is not a threat to be eaten by the cat because he's a predator bird almost. And so I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a great way to structure it because it's just it's a story of survival. And we get to in extraordinary circumstances, and we get to witness to see how are they going to overcome this. And even though they are just animals, there's teamwork and there's this camaraderie that happens.
Right. And there's a moment where the cat finally learns how to fish, and learns how to live in the water as opposed to just always fearing it. And so the cat starts feeding the other animals as well. And I feel like that's where they start to really kind of they really start to kind of gel together and feel like, okay, we're all in this together. We're all in this together. Yeah. It's interesting. I wonder what the metaphors that he was trying to convey in these, like, were the other dogs part of another metaphor? Because they were all different types of dogs as well. And even the dogs, the breeds were from different areas of the world. And so it's like, okay, is this a multiculturalism kind of message? Is this some regions are easier to deal with than others? I don't know. Like, these are just thoughts that I'm like, what are you trying to say? I don't know. But yeah, there was the whole part that they were all trying to get together was kind of hard for me to imagine because my dog, like, she kills everything for sport. Like, she doesn't care. Like, like squirrel, cat, whatever.
Ice woman.
Yes. All she really wants to do is kill it and throw it up in the air and swing it around it. But like, and then she's good. And I'm like, oh my gosh, girlfriend, I can't take you anywhere. But these other animals are like, okay, well, let's be friends because that would be in the best interest for all of us.
Okay, so this movie has won so far the Golden Globe, which is incredible. I mean, and it's actually there's an interesting parallel between this movie and The Wild Robot because they have these themes of survival and community in unlikely circumstances. And it's just so funny the way that the world works sometimes, where these films are so different yet so similar. And obviously, there's dialogue happening in The Wild Robot, but so already. This one has the Golden Globe. It won that on January 5th, 2025. And there's been a whole bunch of like critics circles, like the New York Film Critics or the St. Louis Film Critics. It's actually won like all those local critic associations. It's won not like nearly all of them or quite a few of them for Best Animated Feature. And coming up is obviously the Annie Awards for Best Animated Feature / Best Animated Feature - Independent. Interesting that they have even that subcategory, which I think is an acknowledgement of, budget and restraints. But just because you're shoved in the independent Best Feature category, does that mean you're not eligible for Best Feature in general? Let's just, you know what I mean? I'd be interested to look at the different categories of the Annie Awards. But then obviously we have the Academy Awards, which is coming up the 2nd of March, 2025. So definitely a contender. And so do I like The Wild Robot or Flow better? Yes, is the answer. I mean, they're both so good. There's some similarities, but they're so different that they focus on different things. They have similar themes.
Yeah.
But they go about it in totally different ways. And I don't even want to compare the two. It's just such a shame that both phenomenal films are up against each other, but that is a problem to have, a great problem to have.
Yeah.
It could be worse. At least all the animated films this year are actually decent contenders.
Yeah.
Versus,
Past,
some years. It's like,
some years,
really? Yeah. So I'm just excited for this film. I'm really excited or really grateful that it was recommended. I mean, obviously we pay attention to the different films, but it's just difficult to review every single one on the podcast to get out there and to see it. By this point, we were able to rent it, which was nice. And so speaking of, I know I've mentioned this the third time talking about Dogman versus this movie, but I had a sick child this week, so we didn't go to church. I didn't go to church. I stayed with the baby. And then I was watching this as I was doing ironing. Luckily, that was as minimal of an activity that I could do to still watch the movie. I wasn't missing out.
Mm-hmm.
But there was about 30 minutes left and my kids come home from church. And my almost 4-year-old walks in and he sits down and just starts watching it. And he likes it. And he's picking up on what's happening, but immediately starts asking questions. And I mean, obviously he didn't watch from the very beginning and some of those were answered previously, but I thought it was very interesting because I feel like I could take my kids to this movie and they would be dead quiet. They would be so engaged and asking questions. If the 4-year-old is keenly interested and curious, I think the older kids likewise would really enjoy it and love the mystery of what's unfolding.
I think so. I think there's an element of like watching nature happen that is just, it's innately interesting to us because it's right around us and yet it seems so far away. And like there are so many times when I think about different animals and how they have to have conversations. Like we just don't understand how they're having these conversations. Like I always think about the story of these elephants who had like a caretaker and they were on one of these big reserves or a preserve and the caretaker died. The elephants came back and then stood in like a circle for like 3 days as like a vigil and then left right after he died. And it was just like, it's like we are so close and yet so far to what is happening and to be able to see kind of what the animals are intuitively saying to each other without saying anything, and then just being with each other and creating bonds without having dialogue is something that I think we have more and more distance from nowadays, because we're, as you're saying, like, you have to have dialogue for Netflix. You know, you have these things that they feel like you need to have this in order to keep people's attention. But when people just slow down and actually sit and they watch and they are calm with themselves, I think that that's more and more missing from our daily lives. And so this is another reason why it's so interesting.
Yeah. Breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
All right. So do you have any other thoughts? I mean, when I was thinking about the themes, there's definitely a theme of solitude and loneliness. As the very, very beginning, we see that the cat is alone, and the cat is not integrated into, because everyone is siphoned off by their own animal groups, and you know, the dogs have a pack, and so the cat's just kind of wandering around and then goes to the abandoned home. And so there's that loneliness that happens, and how hard that can be. And it can be very hard to overcome, but community helps in moments of solitude and loneliness, obviously. But even unexpected and unlikely companions who under normal circumstances would not be together and would not cohabitate or mingle.
Right.
And that's that's one of the main lessons that I took away from this. Obviously, overcoming prejudice, but definitely, it's not a theme of mystery.
There just are mysteries.
They're just it just is a mystery. Yeah.
Yeah. I got a lot out of like who to trust and who not to trust. You know, it's like they realize like who they could, and then with the other dogs, they're like, nope, we can't. We'll bring them along, but we can't really trust them. And so like even within the group, there's like even, you know, a tighter group.
Yeah.
And the other dogs were actually a tight group amongst themselves. And so yeah, like those types of themes of boundaries as well as alliances. And so I saw a lot of that as well. And then also you can't forget the lemurs, where he's like, this is my collection. My collection.
I see. If your father heard about that.
I really did see, like, look at this stuff, isn't it? Here, like right when they go by his little house thing. Just like,
I couldn't help thinking of King Julian.
Oh yeah.
The most famous animated lemur of all.
I did also think about Leapin' Lemurs. Do you remember from, what was that TV show? It was a live action TV show with a puppet lemur, the lemur puppet.
Zaboomafoo?
Yeah, that's the one.
It's so funny you mentioned that, because I think just yesterday someone posted on X saying it's the 25th anniversary of Zaboomafoo on PBS.
Oh my
Can you
gosh.
believe it? They showed the intro. I'm like, wow, 25 years with the Kratz brothers, right?
Wow.
And those cats, are they Kratz or the Kratz brothers now have a show, another PBS show. It's like an animated show,
which is much better to do than to be on camera yourself. Just like make it animated, because then you never grow up.
Well, yes, but then you have to animate the whole business.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Hey, but you can just do it in Blender. Why not?
Why?
No, I was very impressed with ultimately everything that happened here. And I think this really opens the table and opens the door. I mean, independent animation, this is not uncommon to be using the software. Many people do. However, for a film to reach this magnitude and level, and especially getting the awards and attention and praise and accolades that it has, is quite a big deal. And I think it really lets a lot of the gatekeepers, you know, those gates are coming down more and more.
Which we both appreciate.
Yeah, I am a fan. Let it flow. Let all the animation come. All right, so what would you rate it?
I would give this 4 stars. I don't have a particular thing that I'm like, oh my gosh, this was amazing for it, but it was enjoyable. I liked it. I felt like they did everything well, and it resonates at a 4 for me.
Awesome. So I'm going to rate it 5 stars, which is
nice.
We need a button like 5-star moment.
What?
I am very stingy with my 5 stars, but I could not really put this movie, if this were a book, like I could not put it down. It was very captivating. It was mysterious. It very much felt like Myst to me. And I really loved that video game, even though I was thwarted time and time again. I want to go play it. I want to get an emulator and try to beat it now. Or maybe I'll just watch a walkthrough on YouTube. That's probably more like. And I just really enjoyed every moment of this movie, I was thrust into the action in media res, and I was just having to explore and figure out and put the clues and pieces together. The animation was beautiful. The ultimate and the themes of loneliness and solitude and community were very aptly shared in such an interesting way. You know, we had no dialogue throughout, and the way they're able to the director and filmmakers were able to do this, I'm just really impressed. I feel it's a very mature film that is needed. We don't see movies like this where you can just breathe. It's like such a breath of fresh air for American animation. I know this is a Latvian film, but I enjoyed myself so much that I immediately was like, this has to be 5 stars for me. So there you go.
Perfect. Well, let us know what you think. We would love to hear from you. As you know, you can go to rotoscopers.com/voicemails and leave us your review with that. I think next week we should go into some of the voicemails that we've been getting.
Yes, so next week we'll do a voicemail episode. And
let's do that.
That will be really, really fun. And then we can just kind of talk about all the things.
Some of the past episodes we've done, and we've gotten a couple of people reaching out. So thank you for that. And I'm happy. You can go to any of the show notes for this episode is going to be at rotoscopers.com/331. And you can leave us a comment there as well.
Alrighty, that's all we have for today. Until next time,
we are the Rotoscopers. And we are floating down the river for fun and misfits.
Going down the bayou. Going down the bayou. There we are. So I am officially on the 27th of January, say the 27th, starting my digital detox. And I know I was going to do it in January. But here's my thing. I don't know about you, but in recent years, I've really had a problem with New Year's resolutions starting on January 1st. I feel like...
Well, and this week it was like January 1st was a Wednesday.
Oh, I hate the midweek January 1st. Even if I were to start, I always start the Monday after January 1st because that's just how I do it. But yeah, and whenever I've done New Year's resolutions, I really don't ever start implementing them in the past few years until February, because that period between Christmas and New Year's is such a busy time. It's not like the festivities stop. I mean, they may lessen a bit, but there's still lots going on. Kids are out of school. And I remember there used to be this like business influencer named Rachel Hollis, and she had a few books, and she used to talk about, in between Christmas and New Year's, I get a whole week to myself, and I get in a room and I write all my goals and my business goals and my personal goals, and I do a vision board. And I'm like, do
you send your kids away?
Like this is the one time they're out of school. Like it just was okay. Whatever, you do you, boo. She had her own controversy, and you don't really hear about her anymore. But it was such an odd time. I understood why. Like I want to get my goals all ready to go by January 1st, but January 1st just seems like such an arbitrary date. Like I get why you want to do the whole 2025, but I have noticed my flow is to push it a little bit. Like get back in the flow of January and all the activities and the flow of life. And then I start being in a place where I'm able to make changes and implement. And I really feel that this week. So my sister-in-law and I are doing a social media fast for a week, and where we're not going on social media at all. And although I'm occasionally here and there for Rotoscopers doing a few things, but that's only allowed on my computer. You're kind of in and out, but there's no mindless scrolling. But we're even taking it a step further where it's like no YouTube, no podcasts or audiobooks. And she and I are dying already. I've been texting her. We can text and we can have phone calls, And I was cleaning the kitchen before we started recording, and I'm just like, I need something to listen to. I'm like, am I gonna have to listen to music? Because I'm so in the audiobook podcasting world, like I'm just not a music person. I don't ever have time for it. And then I was like, I guess I can turn on the TV and have that as background noise. And within 5 minutes, I'm like, I hate this. Turn it off. So I went back to being alone with my thoughts, and which was fine. I was thinking about, the podcast and getting stuff ready. But yeah, so there's no podcast, no audiobooks. And if you do want to read, it needs to be a physical book, which is fine. basically it's just trying to detox you from constantly being on the phone, constantly having the phone in your hand, checking the phone when you're around people and your kids. And so, yes, is podcast while you're doing chores that bad of a thing? No, but we need to totally like shift and cut away from that and start totally from square one before we bring those back in. So it's just a week, and that's totally doable. Starting next week, I can get back to listen to my shows, but maybe that time away, like this first day is really the detox, the suffocation. My body doesn't know what to do, you know, with the sugar withdrawal, if you will.
Right.
And so it will get better as the next few days go. And, you know, by the time you get back into it, you know, you can use social media. I think starting next week, even then, I want to continue not using social media on my phone. If I really want to check it, I can go on the computer, which is much more of a conscious act. But another thing that I'm doing this week is where's the camera? Oh, it's this over here. I can't even see it. But I'm calling it the Write It Down Challenge, meaning every action that I need to do as far as how I'm going to be spending my time, I write it down. So it's not like dumb little things like I put my cup on the sink. Like, okay, not things like that. Right, but it's like, okay, this moment, what am I going to be doing? So I started after I put the kids, got the kids to school, 8:45. I made a shake, which was making breakfast. That was breakfast number one, actually, because I do dishes at 8:49. I was doing dishes, cleaning the kitchen. At 8:56, I paused to make my bed and then to make my second breakfast. Because I eat, basically I'm kind of carnivore-ish, where I make this big protein bowl with steak, eggs, avocado, and sweet potatoes. And that fills me for the whole day. So even though I just made a shake, I'm drinking at the same time, but that's going to fill me up until dinner time. So I don't feel bad for eating two breakfasts. I mean, it's basically a variation of the same breakfast. Then I had to switch the laundry at 9:14. And then podcast prep was at 9:21. And then at 9:30, it was podcast. So now I need to end the podcast and go to the doctor because my baby's sick and he's been sick for quite a while. So, but Chelsea, update me on you before we go.
I finally got my new desk.
Oh, good.
It came in the mail today. So Myrtle Beach got a crazy winter storm that came through, and it never gets snow, but we got 6 inches of snow. So that was crazy. And every day just felt like a snow day where you didn't really want to do anything. And so it was hard to, and they don't solve the roads. They don't know how to deal. Like, so the world just really shuts down when this happens. And it only happens like every 10 years. So it was just like, okay, I guess we're slowing down and we're just going to sit and enjoy different TV shows or something. So my cousin and I we watched the show called Ghosts, and that one was fun. That's on Paramount Plus. I like it. It's good. And then I just got done I binged through Ted Lasso as well. So both were, enjoyable. So I was like, okay, good. But now that I have a hard time starting a series because I just want to finish it. And so I am glad that I'm done with both of them, because now I feel like, okay, now I can actually get back to life. And the snow is melting. Everything's going well. I mean, yes, it's raining outside, but it's not snow. So that's different. And so I got my desk. I'll be putting that together. And so I feel like this week will be really a lot more, just a lot more things, a lot more productive. And I also have deleted YouTube off of my app, which is, I mean, it's a huge deal though, because I, like yourself, am very into the podcast and YouTube, like whatever commentator type things that happen. And so I feel like it'll be great because I have so much stuff that I actually should be doing. But I'd much rather have candy than like good things that are good for me. So that is what the podcast space is for me. And so, I will be joining Morgan on this week-long situation, and it's fast. And then after that, we shall see how things go. But that is, But other than that, of course, Rotoscopers, the Animation Addicts podcast, is exempt from all of these because we're all in this together.
Nice. Okay. You've been listening to the Animation Addicts podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to help spread the word, be sure to share the podcast with your friends on social media. Just don't forget to tag us at Rotoscopers on Instagram and use the hashtag AnimationAddicts. For all the links and full show notes for this episode, go to rotoscopers.com/podcast. Now, if you still can't get enough for your animation fix, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and visit rotoscopers.com for more animation news, reviews, and interviews.